Okay, we right now in chapter. I'm doing after. Maybe what do you think to type all this notebook to the computer? Think it's gonna be good?
Yeah, that's really good.
Then I'm gonna log it.
Ten? Okay, so
You have to do everything. No more. No more doing too many days. Too much temptation. Okay.
time flies, man.
I know. I don't want it.
There's no global anything in Java. Everything belongs in the class. So what do you do if you have a method whose behavior doesn't depend on an instance variable value, like round in the math, in the round method? It never needs any instance. You just need it passing two numbers, and that's it. Okay. So it would be a waste of heap space to make an instance of class math simply to run around the method. It makes no sense. It would need an instance of it. Right? Which is why you just do math, and you use over here, notice it's capital, uppercase.
Yeah. So that is normal.
It's just the class itself.
Okay.
Okay? So what you do is basically make the methods static. Static method means
Yeah, it's static. When you use public static something, it's not void main. So what is in the static?
static just means it's at the class level. It has no. It doesn't belong to any instance, any object. So this round method doesn't need any instance. In fact, it can't. That method cannot use any instance specifically. It just is based
On that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need. There's no instance. It's just a method.
Yeah. And you won't come across this that much in your career unless you're doing some unique project. When you use the math and use what the Java gives you to make your own static method, it's very rare unless obviously unless you're in a unique project. However, the exception is that the main method that you write is always the public static.
Okay.
Okay. And that's the only exception, really. That's a big exception. Okay. Okay, so a static method means behavior that's not dependent on an instance variable. So no instance object is required. Just the class. That's why you do math, the class thing that round. Okay? Sometimes that you don't want it, you want the whole class not to be instantiated. You want, for example, math is never instantiated. You never make an instance of math.
Yeah.
Sometimes, though, you can have a lot of things that are used, and this
You
is
just
just
make
one
an
that
instance from that.
you can't. Right, but sometimes you will have it in a static method, but the rest of the class you do want to have an instance of. Okay. Okay. Here you go. So static methods cannot use non-static instance variables, nor non-static methods.
Static method, non-static. What do you mean non-static?
So instance variable that's static also has the same issue. It only belongs in the class.
How do you know what is instance variable static?
It's such a rare example that you use it. That's why it's not really used. But an instance variable that's static would be like, this is just an example. It's not you want to do this, but imagine you had a bunch of ducks that you create ducks.
Yeah.
And every time you create a duck, you want to keep an account of how many ducks are being created.
Okay. Count.
So you can do a duck count that is static,
Okay.
and that's at the class level. So every time you're updating this.
So you're not using a lot with static.
What?
You're not using with the static class. The static variable.
So no, it's never used. But a static method and a static variable just belong to the class. Let me see if I have any examples.
They have it here. What is when the question that I asked you? Okay, look. This is what was weird. Look, they add public static void do stuff. I didn't understand what it means. Like why they had it public static. We have one. Why they also made it.
Why do they need it?
Yeah, why they did public static.
And why? I mean, you could have as many as you want. And that's one problem I like with this book is that their exercises are just so far fetched. It's never gonna happen in real life. You can do as much as you want. That's the problem. They're not realistic. They just do it because they want to test you, make you mashuggy.
Okay.
Here's an example. Here's a duck. Every time a duck is created, look what's happening. Huh?
No, something weird.
What?
With all your job that you're doing, you're the kid and you keep.
I like code.
Yeah. I like it either, but I like my other job.
So here you go. Let's run this.
Okay, let me see the code.
Yeah. So see here we have this duck. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Let's run. Remember this one?
Yeah, you showed me.
Okay.
So go back.
So every time we run duck, anytime you create a duck, the constructor is adding to the static one, duck. Keeps on going up. But this is at the class level, so no matter what you change it to, you're changing the class level. Which is why you don't want to use this, because this is against object-oriented programming. Object-oriented programming means you're thinking about each object has its own stuff.
Yeah, so you can't just make the main class to count.
Right. So even though you could do this,
but you make
be
it
very
and
careful.
implement another class, another object that you count it, no?
What?
If you want to think about object-oriented,
Yeah,
so
that's
you can
exactly
make
what
a
you do.
new object
Right.
that just count.
That's right.
Implement.
So, yeah, that's yeah. So this is the thing. This is possible. This is not a good reason to use it. If you want to find a good reason to use it, it's going to be tough to find. But there are. It's just tough to.
Yeah.
In general, you got to be very careful with static stuff. But that means you're not thinking object oriented. In general. Okay. Okay. Remember, you cannot in a static method. You cannot start using things that are not static. Right. I can't. If I have a static method, I cannot use this one because this variable is non-static.
So where you can use it? Show me.
Only in places that are not. For example, here. So this one set counts.
It's not static.
It's not static, so you can use this stuff.
Okay, but you can't use with the tag count. Can you? So it's the same like to like constructor. You have to use with the same name.
This is a constructor. Here's a constructor.
So you use with the tag count, but it's not the static.
Duck count is not a method.
So what did you tell me you can?
This is not a method. This is a constructor.
Yeah, but when you have a static, you can't use.
A static method cannot use a non-static variable.
Okay.
A
But
static.
you have the static method.
I don't have any over here now. I don't have a static method.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. No worries. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so see over here, the main method is always static. This is not good. Even though this is legal, it's not good. Right? Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's a good idea. In other words, you can call, say math allowed you to make an instance.
Okay.
You could have made an instance and then called it round. But it's not a good practice. You don't want to do that.
So this is an instance that you call to the main.
Main is always, look, main,
Yeah, I understand.
so it's not a good practice. If you want to call main, just do duck.main. Duck as in capital, as in the class itself, is main to static. You don't want to call a static method by
So
making
you
this.
doing duck that
That's it. Yeah, it's not going to happen. Let me close it. Who is that? They will come. They will come in and sit down. Okay, come in. Just sit down. Okay, so, okay, so static variable is the same for all instances, right? So, no matter where this gets changed in the code, it'll change it for everybody. Not a good idea. Okay. So basically, after here, I think my stuff. So static variables are initialized before any object of that class can be created and before any static method of the class runs them. Basically, so if let's see over here.
why did we need the chapter on study? Not good important.
Why?
You know
I mean, you have to know it. You might use it every so often. Also, you're going to be using it from the math.
No.
So you have to just know how to use it. You know what I mean? Okay. So that's the basic gist of it. That basically they get set before you use it. I'll show you an example over here. Okay, see this one?
Yes.
So there's a thing called static. If you want, you can put code inside static.
Everything's okay?
Yeah. See this over here? I'll run this. Okay. See what the output was?
Mm-hmm. Show me.
Okay. Look at the output.
Okay. Okay, study. Study, this, study, this, study, this, study. So sorry, get study, okay.
You almost never use this.
Yes, so basically, the study create only one time when you create the object.
This gets run one time. That's it. This gets run every time you create something. This gets run once, and that's it. As long as it's in the
Test study.
Yeah. This over here.
Oh,
This
this is like a manual that built in Java.
static.
Yeah.
See this static is something that the Java will run once, only once it's in the JVM.
Okay.
This will run it every time you create something from this object.
So test study.
Right. So if you notice in the output, this one gets run first. Then the main over here gets run because it's before I did the constructors, and over here when I run through them, it runs this.
What does it mean? You put system or print the main.
Yeah, but look at the order. Even though this is over here, this over here. Look how it's printed out: static, then main, then these three.
Oh, because I got you. So every time that you create yes.
You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yes.
So constructors get run each time.
When you create
Static gets run once you load it into the JVM. That's it.
in the book, yeah?
This is actually not discussed in the book.
Really?
It's discussed very briefly.
So-
Very briefly.
Okay.
But again, it's so weird.
I'm gonna go over the video.
The book mentions it, but it for a second, and it truly just doesn't have to talk about it because this is it's used so rarely, so rarely.
Okay.
You know, except for unique situations. Okay, so now we're up to okay, let's talk about final. Okay? Ready? Okay, what does final do? Final makes it final. Exactly what it does. So final variable means you cannot change its value.
Yes.
Why would you use that? You want something never to change.
And you know what I want people gonna touch it.
Right. So, you know, sometimes you'll have imagine you have, I'll give you a perfect example. Say,
But you can do getter and setter instead of file, huh?
what do you mean? Say you have, I'll give you an example. There's a color black, right? So black equals. I'm trying to see right now. Let's look at the hexadecimal version of black. I have no idea what it is. Let's see what it is. Okay. So black code for hexadecimal
What is
would be 00000.
Oh.
So say you want person to pick a color. You pick
Yeah.
black.
Yeah.
Black should always be 00000.
So you write if black equal to 000.
No, you actually just write black equals 000. Final.
Oh,
No one can ever change it.
oh yeah.
It'll never ever be changed.
Yes.
Okay. Final method also means the same thing. It can never be overridden. So if someone makes a subclass, you can't change what that method does.
Yes.
And a final class means it cannot be subclassed.
Cannot be subclass.
Yeah, the last thing in inheritance. So if you had like an animal,
Oh, so
and then
they
you
finally.
made, that's it. Yeah, input, you make it final. It's different. No one can make something below the input. Okay. Obviously, if a class is final, everything inside of it is final too, by default. And the methods. Okay. So here's some math methods. Random, we did determine random. Absolute is determine the absolute value. It's just basically if it's 0, -1 will be 1. It's stuff for figure out anyways. Round just rounds it. Min takes the minimum one. Max takes the max one. That's it. Okay, wrapping. Steam goes over here, Dina. Steam goes over here, please.
You took it back. Oh, you're so clean.
Okay, so here, if you want to treat a primitive variable, remember the primitives? Here are the primitives we had.
Yes.
But this is now how they are. If you want to use it as a,
Okay.
if you want to use it as a object.
Okay. Wrapping a primitive. Okay. Sometimes you want to treat primitive like an object, for example, arrays. Job. Okay.
Right. So say you want to have. Give me a simple example. Integer is a class that holds an integer. Right? That's all it does. But since it's an object now, you can actually have some cool methods like parse it into a string. You can test things on it. It comes with a bunch of cool functions and methods that you can do. So sometimes you want to treat a primitive like an object. So this is how you do it. You actually just put it into one of these buckets. And I'll show you how to do it right now. Okay? So right over here, here's an example.
So you want to treat this primitive like an object.
Yeah. So say here integer I equals 288. See that?
Yes.
I can then put it into a integer object. Integer I wrap equals new integer and pass I in there. So now 288 is in this I wrap variable.
So why not gonna do int irep equal to 88?
It's not int, it's an integer. You're
Yeah.
right. Why they named it something else? That's what they named it.
No, why not just put int instead of the integer?
Yeah.
Irep equal
Yeah.
I.
Equals what?
I. The int I. You understand what I mean?
Remember, int is not the same thing as integer. Because int is a primitive. Integer is an object. Right?
Yes.
It's
What
not.
are you trying to do here?
So I'm putting. You're right. I could put over here 288 inside here, but this is different than this. Because this now has methods you can use on it.
Ah, so getting right. Oh.
For example.
Irep dot something.
Yes.
Oh.
It comes. It has. Let's look over here.
Yeah, I got it.
Watch this. Java integer. Oops. Class. Okay, so look what it comes with. What you can do with this. If you put something inside an integer thing. So you can do stuff like, let's start static.
Static.
Okay? So you can take like, here's some of the methods. Ready?
Integer.
Bit count, byte value, compare to, get integer, hash code, value, number of things, zeros. There's tons of stuff you can do with it. Now, off the bat, I'd never really used this that much, so I don't know. 2 strings is a very good one, so I have to convert it to a string. If you need to do some heavy work with this, you can obviously put it to an integer and play around with it. It gives you a lot more room to do stuff. Okay. One of the things that you'll need it for is, remember we did array list of integers. You can't, array list of integer takes actually the integer, no, it takes the integer this. This is how you wrote it, not like this. Because it's actually taking the class. The cool thing is that now Java allows you to use them back and forth. It doesn't care if it's an object or this. For example, I can go like this, string s, here, this actually like an example. But you can actually pass them. You can do, I can do, one is a wrapped one, like one's not. I can plus them together, no problem.
One is one?
Imagine I have a primitive that says it's equals 1.
Oh, y is inside the y1 and you have a that is integer. So you're doing y equals a.
I can do plus 1, I can do plus, it'll work, they work
together.
Yeah, no problem. Java is smart enough to do it. Yeah. Let's look at this example over here. Okay. Notice the wrappers have a bunch of really useful static methods. Okay, like I showed you before in that over here. There's a bunch of methods you can use. Okay. So check this out. So I have a string, and it's 2. And this is a string, it's not a number. I can now go integer.parseInt, and it'll actually convert that into an integer.
Yes, it's fine.
So you should notice I'm using the class and a static method from the class.
Oh, parseInt.
So parseInt is a static method from the class, because you know that because this is a class. We're not using a instance. Same thing with double.
ParseInt is the method.
ParseInt is a static method on the integer class. You can do all this. You can do over here. You can convert this.
Oh, now when you see those stuff, so
now it makes sense. Yeah. You know what's going on.
What is it? What?
Yeah. So now you know that parseInt is a static method on a class integer that takes a string and converts it to an integer. Okay. Remember, if I put in here a z or an x or y, it'll have a number format exception. That's it. Okay. Now I don't know if you want to wait for this till tomorrow. You want to continue? It's up to you. Now we're going to a totally different subject. I want you to make sure you get it, so I don't know if you want to.
I'm probably going to go over it today.
Let's see.
Tomorrow we can finish this one. Okay.
Because the rest of the chapter is all formatting.
Oh, so if it's different.
Okay, so stop. Stop over here. So formatting, you'll see, it's. This whole chapter is not. Even the formatting, you won't be using so much.
Yeah, sometimes they have to give you a chapter that, just a general knowing about this thing.
Yeah. Okay, we'll stop there for now.